When we think about segregation, we often imagine separate bathrooms, different schools, and unfair laws. But segregation wasn't just about division, it was about fear, violence, and the complete disregard for Black lives. This era wasn't just unfair, it was deadly. Today, I want to take you through three stories, three moments in history where racial hatred took innocent lives, where justice was denied, and where the truth was hidden for decades. These stories are painful, but they must be remembered. Our first story takes us to Money, Mississippi in the summer of 1955. Emmett Till was just 14 years old when he traveled from Chicago to visit family in the South. He was a kid, young, full of life, and unaware of the deadly consequences of simply being Black in the Jim Crow South. On August 24th, he was accused of whistling at a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, in a grocery store. 4 days later, her husband and his brother kidnapped Emmett from his uncle's home. They beat him, gouged out one of his eyes, shot him in the head, and dumped his body in the Tallahatchie River with a cotton gin fan tied around his neck with barbed wire. His mother, Marnie Till Mobley, made the world see what they did to her son. She held an open casket funeral, and the images of Emmett's disfigured face spread across newspapers, shocking the nation. But justice never came. An all-white jury acquitted his killers in just an hour, and decades later, Carolyn Bryant admitted she lied. The murder of Emmett Till should have been a wake-up call, but the violence didn't stop. It only escalated. Less than a year later, a group of young girls getting ready for church would be the next victims of hate. September 15, 1963. It was a Sunday morning in Birmingham, Alabama, and the 16th Street Baptist Church was full of families. In the basement, four young girls, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Denise McNair were getting ready for the church service. But at 10:22 a.m., a bomb planted by members of the Ku Klux Klan exploded. The blast was so powerful that it tore through the brick walls and killed all four girls instantly. Over 20 others were injured. It was a clear act of racial terrorism, but the men responsible weren't immediately brought to justice. Some weren't convicted until almost 40 years later. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called it one of the most vicious and tragic crimes ever perpetrated against humanity. Racial violence wasn't just about bombing and murder. Black women too were often targets, but their stories were even more likely to be ignored. Our next story is about a woman who was silenced for decades, but she refused to be forgotten. On the night of September 3rd, 1944, 24-year-old Racy Taylor was walking home from church in Abbeville, Alabama. A car filled with 6 white men pulled up beside her. At gunpoint, they forced her inside and drove her to a secluded area. For hours, they brutally assaulted her, then left her on the side of the road, warning her that if she spoke out, they would kill her. But Racy Taylor did speak out. She told the police what happened, and Rosa Parks, yes, the same Rosa Parks who later sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, led a national campaign for justice. But despite the overwhelming evidence, 2 all-white juries refused to indict her attackers. It took until 2011, 67 years later, for the state of Alabama to issue an apology, but no one was ever punished. These aren't just stories from the past. They are reminders of the injustice that shaped America and the voices that refused to be silenced. Emmett Till's death sparked the civil rights movement. The bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church forced the country to confront racial terrorism, and Racy Taylor's courage helped inspire Rosa Parks and the fight for justice. These victims never got the justice they deserved, but by remembering them, we refuse to let history forget. As Racy Taylor once said, "The world should know what they did to me, and now we do."